Hey, good morning. Thank you, Kristen, for your support. I'm Dan Wanamaker. I'm with Bruce Power. With today, I got Tiffany McMillan with Black & Veatch and Brad Zanatti from Oracle. And today we're here to present our team's work on developing the next generation of craft workers. But first, what we'd like to do is show you a quick little video. It will play eventually, I promise. There we go.
We just wrapped a major phase on my project. Work slowed down, and I had more people than I could keep busy. These are good workers, guys I trust, but at the end of the day, I've got a budget, I've got a schedule, and I've got to make the call, so I laid them off. You tell yourself it's temporary. They'll land somewhere else. That's how this industry works. They told me the job was slowing down. Nothing personal, just no more work. But for me, it's not just no more work. It's what's next? I've got bills, I've got a family. I can't sit around waiting for the next call, so I take the first job I can get. Even if it's not the best one. Even if it's with a different company.
We're ramping up fast and we're short. I need experienced people, not next month, now. So we're calling, we're recruiting, we're paying premiums, trying to fill gaps. And the reality is, we just laid off people who could do this exact work.
I made the right decision for my project. I did what I had to do for my family.
I'm doing everything I can to staff this job.
Same company, same moment in time. 3 people doing exactly what the system expects, and it still doesn't work. This isn't a labor shortage problem. It's a system problem, and some companies are starting to fix it.
Okay, thank you. What we're going to be doing is talking during our speech, talking about the challenges that companies that are in this room right now are actually facing today. Also, how our team here approached our study, our research. We're also going to talk about some cross-cutting themes that some of you already feel and have witnessed and are excited about already. And as well as we'll talk about what we expect from you guys later on and what we think that you should be happening. And Brad, would you like to start us off?
Sure.
Thanks, Brad.
Okay, this is incredible. So I actually met some of you last year. I was with research team 422. Shout out to that research team. I know some of you are here. That was with the state of AI for construction safety. So I am just as surprised as you are that they let me back on the stage. Dan just said to me backstage, he goes, "Are you sure you're not the Karate Kid?" I'm pretty sure. Now, to jog some of your memory, and for those folks who haven't met me, I'm from Pennsylvania. I live in New York, but I'm from Pennsylvania. And you're like, oh, yeah, he's the guy from PA that sounds like C from the Bronx Tale. This is what happens when your father's from New York and your mother is Robert De Niro. But let's talk about what we have going on today. So you can read on the screen. I can't. I don't have my glasses on me right now. But you can see those numbers, right? Not enough labor to go around. Guys, construction spend is fantastic. All of you know that because you're all very busy. So let me tell you something that is more informative, right? You guys also know about the labor shortage. That is no surprise. We've heard about the labor shortage for decades now. That's been a challenge. But why is that, right? Well, of course, we have higher demand and lower supply. But we're not here to talk about recruiting methods to you today, how to recruit more talent. That's not what the point of our study and the themes that we discerned from these case studies. Instead, we're here to say, hey, what we gleaned from our studies, that the folks that are successful with their programs, which you guys are a part of, you're very successful companies, you guys are doing things differently. It's not who's recruiting the most, it's who's retaining the most, right? And then also who's optimizing job placement and making sure folks are placed on a job right after the first one ends and the next one starts. That's what we're talking about. It's about Craftforce development, keeping people where they are and keeping them busy. So you can see those numbers there. We have a need to keep on retaining people, and we have a need to inject more people, Craftforce, into our industry. But now, a lot of you spend beautiful energy in business development, bidding out projects, competitively bidding projects or through relationships, getting estimates together. There's a lot of energy that goes into that, but that's half the battle. Because you win the work and you're saying, who do we put on this job now? Do we have the right folks, especially Craftforce? Well, it's not just about that. In our interviews, we also discerned a dollar amount to the cost of training somebody, onboarding somebody, the cost of turnover. And it's around 5,000 to 6,000 per person you're onboarding. Now, you guys represent some big, successful companies, so scale that a couple hundred per year, and now we're talking about in the millions. So guys, what we're talking about here today is, yes, developing and retaining and caring for the Craftforce, which is very important, right? For my cousin Mel, for your son, for your daughter, for your nieces and nephews, for your colleagues, for those people. But we're also, make no mistake, we're also talking about margin erosion. Yes, you guys work for businesses that have laser-thin margins. So this is really important. How we operate is tremendous because we know that every cost that's tied to our internal operations eventually lead to more or less profit. So think about that. So what did we do, right? How did we approach this? Well, we have 10 case studies, 6 of which are from members of CII, companies, and then 4 of which are not. But let me fly through this because I've already been told, they said, Brad, don't talk as much, okay? I said, sure. So a lot of you guys represent these companies as well as we do on stage, although I don't know where the Oracle logo is. We have the Are You OK program with Black & Veatch, right? Tiffany knows this. We'll talk more about this, but it's really geared around mental health and support and facilitating conversations, which is wonderful and helps retain employees. It helps them feel heard. Then we have Mortensen, the Solar Sisters of the Traveling Hard Hat. You guys might recognize what inspired that name. The coming-of-age film in the early 2000s. If you owned UGG boots in 2005, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But this is an incredible support program. It's also a recognition program for women leaders on the job site. And it even carries through lessons learned for each project, and we'll talk more about that too. Now, Bechtel, we love you guys. We know your name. We love you, Bechtel. Tremendously setting the bar in our industry. They have a craft survey response that has 96% participation rate. We'll share the secrets of that soon. I'm keeping cliffhangers for you guys, keeping you awake. McCarthy, we have this craft talent review program. I say we as if I'm employed by McCarthy. Okay, we have this craft talent review. Now, this is a standardized review process that prevails throughout the enterprise, and they set standards and benchmarked it, and it's wonderful. Bruce Power, Dan knows Bruce, we have virtual and mixed reality there, where they're training, with this very complex training for their big nuclear sites and things like that. They're using virtual reality and augmented reality for that. Be sure to pick his brain about this afterwards. Kiewit uses these Connex mobile training labs and ships them to job site. Connex being those shipping containers, they say, hey, instead of having a bunch of people centralized in one location, we're gonna ship out our training labs to the job site, working to the schedule. Rosendin has these emerging leaders program. So think about the apprentices that want to emerge to be foremen. Well, it's not just about technical skills, it's also about the soft skills, and that's what Rosendin highlights there. Baker does something similar, but a bit different, and it's for their foremen and developing them. But again, focusing on those soft skills that are really important, often forgotten, and that we all know is important for leaders, like emotional maturity. We have the Carpenters Union. Shout out to the Carpenters Union, gave me a scholarship in college, appreciate it. These folks have these pre-packaged training sessions for high schoolers. So it's more than just an outreach. It also creates career pathways for them, direct lines to apprenticeship, creating interest, curiosity, and training. We have SUNT. SUNT says, hey, we experience this in our industry where we have these incredible Craftforce workers that get laid off because, as Mr. AI said in our video, he said, hey, sometimes you can't take it personally. This just happened, the job ended, we have nowhere else to place you. But turns out they could have hit the job right down the street or the next town over or maybe a state line over, and we weren't communicating. So they created a craft transfer portal, also craft coordinators to work that. And so I just said a lot there, but don't worry, we're not gonna quiz you after. We said, hey, so they don't fall asleep on us, we're gonna distill themes that's gonna make it more ingestible for you. And we'll be referencing those case studies and elaborating more on it. So Tiffany's gonna get into these themes now.
Thanks, Brad.
You're welcome.
I wish I had the charisma of the Karate Kid here. All right, so we identified 6 themes across our 10 case studies, and we're gonna get into more detail on each of these themes on our next slides. So theme 1 was care for craft. What we found is that the workforce strategy is expanding beyond productivity and safety into whole person support. Now that's physical, mental, and social. The reason behind the shift is because workforce strategies increase the cost of losing even one employee. And because engagement and retention are driven by whether or not workers feel engaged or, whether workers feel engaged. One example comes from Black & Veatch. They looked at the data and they saw something uncomfortable. Suicide rates in construction were among the highest in any industry. So instead of making it a conversation about, sorry guys. So instead of making a conversation driven by HR or a survey, the question came from peers like their foreman or craft professional standing next to you. But here's what makes a difference. They didn't stop at awareness. They connected the conversations directly to their employee assistance program. They trained people to have the conversation, they made it visible across the job sites, and they normalized it. Now, this isn't culture talk. This is a system, and so I want you to take a look at what Black & Veatch did with their rollout of Are You OK?
We don't take one wrench to go fix everything in our house. We have a toolbox full of tools. This is part of our toolbox for holistic safety. We want people to thrive. We want people to enjoy being at work. We want people to really be a whole person at work and enjoy being there and be successful. Are you at your best today? Are you okay? How are things going? It invites a conversation, and those conversations between people are incredibly powerful. We oftentimes ask, hey, how are you? How are things? But that's more of a greeting. And the Are You OK framework provides a method where you know what I mean, and I know what you mean if you ask me, so that when I ask, are you okay? Or you ask, are you okay? It's a signal.
Let silence work. Don't interrupt them. Don't jump to fix it. Just listen. Having this conversation isn't about having all the answers. It's about showing up. One question, one moment, one care. It can change someone's life. So when you're ready, ask, are you okay? You're gonna be a rock star no matter what.
That is a wonderful program. Okay, theme number 2, we're looking at workforce development integrated into the operating systems. So what do I mean by that? Well, oftentimes these things start as initiatives, and then maybe a campaign, and then maybe a program, but then they mature to be embedded into the operations of your business unit, to whatever capacity. That's one of the themes that we discerned from these case studies. We said that is what makes these programs last. So why does this matter? Because it's fostering consistency. It's creating scalability. As your companies continue to grow, you want these programs or these structures to grow with it too. It's embedded. So let's look at 2 of the case studies here. I mentioned Sunt before, and you're gonna hear it again. But with the craft transfer portal, that prevails within the company. And they also made sure it was built to last. They have these craft coordinators to help and to action this craft portal. So they're maintaining the portal with real-time data, but then they're actioning it with coordinators. And it's woven into their operations. Same with Mortensen, with the Solar Sisters of the Traveling Hard Hat, not the book or the movie, but the program. That's a wonderful thing. And we actually talked to them during one of our interviews, and we said, wow, you could scale this. And they said, sure, we sure can, right? And they already are. And it's creating this cross-project pollination with lessons learned. It's woven into the fabric of their operations. We know lessons learned is a very important operation that's often missed. This helps encourage that. All right, Dan.
Thanks, Brad. I like a podium, folks, so that's me. Talking about decentralizing training and with a modern approach. And lots of organizations are trying to take this on. Because training, we have this idea in our head that, we have a centralized facility, we have good content, people are gonna come to you, right? We're gonna have no issues with that. But you start to think about travel, time away, those are our biggest barriers right now. It's not the content of the course. Participation is gonna drive your outcome, not just the curriculum quality. There is an assumption that if you have a great course, it's dynamic, it's fun, everyone's going to want to come there. But at the end of the time, these case studies actually prove the opposite of that. The biggest barrier to training isn't quality, it's access. Kiewit saw this directly when they were doing their program, and they have a strong, centralized training program that was working for years. They loved it, but they have good curriculum and proven outcomes. But what they noticed was the people that are showing up was going down and down and down. Well, why is that? Well, sending a worker away for 3 weeks, away from your home, away from your family, away from what your normalization is, it's very difficult. And it's not what's happening today. It's not what the workers want. So they flipped the script. Instead of just bringing people to training, they said, let's bring the training to the job site. Brad had referenced Connex boxes or shipping containers. They put all the required equipment in a shipping container, send it to the job site, same curriculum, one instructor, much less expensive, and now the workers and participation went up 200%. Same content, different outcome. Instead of relying on a cloud, for myself, for Bruce Power, for example, we have a little bit of a different situation. We have high complex, we have work in radiated environments where we just can't put people into these situations to allow them to practice and become proficient in some cases. So we had to do something different. And you cannot, if anybody knows anything about craft workers, you cannot just rely on a classroom presentation. It is not going to work. So we had to be able to do something different. So we built virtual environments. Workers can now walk through the actual task that they're going to be performing in the environment, looks like the environment in which they're going to participate. That doesn't mean that we don't put them in those environments to train, but then we can reduce that amount of time that we do put them in those environments. So they can, instead of doing it once or twice, they can do it 50, 60 times and become more proficient. And they can also make mistakes without any actual consequence to themselves. It's not just training, it's a rehearsal for the real thing. It reduces errors, it improves safety, it builds confidence, and it improves proficiency. Training works best when it fits the actual reality of the job, not trying to make training fit into the actual workspace. That's what drives adoption. And adoption drives results. The shift from a centralized one-size-fits-all, contextual, accessible, and embedded training is what we need. And that works in a lot of different situations. The training effectiveness is not by access and content. It's by content, and not just content. The model is shifting from come to training to we'll come to you. And that's not just large facilities, that's all across the board. I should have clicked that a minute ago. And finally, look at the carpenters. They developed a curriculum that attracts a next generation of workers. I'm going to get into this a little bit later, but they're now sending it to the high schools and having the high schools participate in this craft workforce so that we can generate carpenters of the future. Tiffany?
Thank you. All right, so theme 4 focused on leadership and management topics for craft training. What we found is that craft training is shifting from technical training to developing frontline leadership capabilities. Our case studies indicated that the shifts are because turnover is often caused by poor supervision, not lack of skills, and because foremen and our leaders are the people who are the primary drivers of both culture and productivity. Several years ago, Baker Construction was losing about a third of their first-year workers, not because the workers couldn't do the job, but because they didn't like who they were working for. So they did something different. Instead of focusing on training their site leadership on technical skills, they started teaching them how to lead, leadership and management skills. They built a crew chief program, and this program was focused on teaching them leadership, on how to do feedback, and provide them with emotional maturity. They weren't teaching them how to pour concrete, they were teaching them how to lead the crews that they were working with. So they didn't teach them just in a classroom like Dan just mentioned. Sorry, we've done this before. We did this last year too, so forgetting Dan's name is... So they required their participants, once they took it from the classroom, they took it to the field and they said, you're gonna build plans, you're gonna demonstrate impact, and you're gonna get feedback from your crews. And then Rosedden, they had a really similar situation. They had a different version of the same problem. They had highly skilled electricians coming out of apprenticeship programs, but they didn't know how to lead. So instead of, again, teaching them the technical skills of being an electrician, they already know that. They shifted their internal training away from that, and they started teaching them management and how to run a crew, how to communicate, and how to handle the administrative sides of leaderships. So here's the implications. If you want to improve retention, productivity, and culture, you don't start with tools. You start with the people who are running the crews. Brad?
Okay, we are almost done with the themes. So if there's anything you are going to glean from our presentation, it's the themes, and then I am, in fact, the Karate Kid. All right. This theme number 5 is craft assessments support stability and continuity. And what we want you to take away here is that they're also prevailing the operations. They're embedded within the, at the highest level. So it's not just starting and stopping with management, it's also prevailing up to leadership who can actually action some of this stuff too, or retain it, or make things better, like more compensation, better leadership pathways, or simply giving more PTO because that's what we heard in the survey. So let's look at that. We have McCarthy here. I mentioned their craft assessment before, but they do a fantastic job standardizing their assessment operations. And it forces them to be in a room, have conversations that are much needed, but also compare each other's standards to make sure we know what good is and we know what great is, and we're all on the same page with that. And opening up ways to ensure that the folks are getting compensated for their work, and they're getting fair compensation increases and fair pathways to leadership and so on. And then Bechtel, I told you, this was the cliffhanger. Again, 96% response rate. Here at CII, we do a lot of surveys. We can learn a thing or two from them, huh? So that's exactly what we did. We said, okay, Bechtel, lay it on us. What are you doing? They said, this is what we're doing. I'm going to say this. It's a secret. You guys got to keep it within this room. They said, one is we're gamifying it. Gamification, incentivizing. I said, smart. Good move. Second is it's accessible. So they could just do it on their phone. Easy. You don't have to be on your laptop, no VPN, none of that. Third is that they're saying, hey, we actually action within reason, what we hear. So it's one thing to say, yeah, we read the survey, sure we do, give them a wink and throw it in the garbage. No, they say, hey, we're actually gonna put our money where our mouth is, right? We're gonna actually action these things. So for example, if they see a bunch of people complaining about PTO, they're gonna figure out with leadership how to change PTO for the Craftforce to make it more suitable. And that's what's creating this culture of, hey, let's actually fill this out because they're listening, and they're changing things. They're empowering us. Theme number 6.
I don't know why I keep having to follow Brad. This is freaking impossible. Human infrastructure. It is as important as digital infrastructure, and I think that's one of the key messages that we have here today, one of the themes, is technology alone is not going to sort out your problems. I think we hear that all the time, AI, all this stuff, it's going to sort everything out. It is not going to do that. People, roles, and support people are required to make sure that this stuff runs. Digital systems will fail without data integrity and adoption. And humans, us, are the ones that are going to be able to translate this information to the workforce. There's a temptation to believe that it's going to solve all of our challenges. You build a platform, you put the data in there, you deploy the tool, boom, we're good. We don't need any people. That's not how it's working. We've seen this for ourselves. Look at McDonald's in Texas. How long did that last? Right? You can't do it without people. These case studies show that this isn't true. And if you look at Sunt, as Brad has talked about, they have a sophisticated transfer portal, integrated systems, reliable data, and the ability to have visibility on over 3,000 craft workers at any time. But they didn't stop there. And that's not where they stopped at all. They had to have some craft coordinators that Brad had discussed. People's job it is to validate the data and facilitate the actual transfers in real time. That's how they make the system work. Without that layer, the system is simply going to break. And all that information, all that effort that you put in is just not going to go anywhere. So they built if you look at the Carpenters Union, for example, I will get this. Without the Carpenters Union, they built a national curriculum, which is really important. They high quality, standardized, scalable information and content. But if they just put that out there, is that going to work? The answer is no. So what they had to do is have outreach specialists. These are the folks that go to the high schools, show the programs, get the kids involved, and make sure that they're progressing as we expect. And then we have our future Craftforce for carpenters. And that's the pattern. Every successful digital system in these case studies that we talked about are paired with human infrastructure. People who maintain it, people who translate it to everybody else, and people who drive the adoption, and that's key. Without that, the tool can sit unused. It becomes outdated, and then the systems fail quietly. We've all been there. We've all heard it. We've all seen it. So the question isn't whether you invest in technology. We're all going to do that. It's whether you invest equally in the people that are required to adopt that and provide that technology. Because in the end, systems do not run themselves. People do. And if you invest in the tools without investing in the people that run them, your system is going to break. Tiffany?
Stay close, you follow me this time.
Yeah, I do. I'll stay right here.
All right, so delivering high quality work on time and on budget, you have to have a skilled workforce in place to do that. And RT 436 provides proven strategies on maintaining a consistent, high-performing workforce. So over the past few years, we've seen tax incentives increasing the craft growth because of apprenticeship programs. A lot of our companies are seeing huge growth in apprenticeship programs. We talked about Kiewit. When we mentioned just a few of our companies that were doing the training, all of them are doing training, right? And so what is happening is we're growing that craft workforce, that workforce that we didn't have. We're building that skilled labor shortage because of some of the tax incentives that we're seeing. So for the owners, this translates to a stronger, more reliable workforce, improved project execution, while also delivering long-term value to your communities. Some of the questions that I get asked, I'm in training and development, and one of the things I get asked when we talk about apprenticeships is, what's the ROI on that? Well, the ROI is huge. It's for us as a company, we're investing in training skilled labor. We're getting people who are probably going to be more likely to travel with us because we're investing in them. It's all of the companies are doing it. We're all out there investing in doing apprenticeship programs right now. There's huge growth. If you looked at Kiewit's, I think they said they had 200% increase because of the tax incentives that are going on right now. That's part of that driver, along with their mobile training. And so there's lasting impact for the whole community when we're all doing training, or for the whole industry. But for communities, we do train local folks. And some of those local folks are going to come and they're going to help support the industry demand as a whole, but some of them are going to stay in your communities. And now you're going to have electricians and equipment operators and craft laborers that you didn't have before the project came there. So it's economic development and impact that lasts far beyond the project. So when we treat craft professionals like a long-term resource instead of a short-term commodity, we build more than a project. We build a skilled workforce, and that investment creates lasting capabilities in our communities, and it strengthens the labor pool for the entire workforce.
Thanks, Tim.
Let's wrap it up.
All right, so folks, we really want you guys to go ahead and look at the research that we've done and download our information and look through it and develop the strategies or utilize the strategies that we've come up with that fit your program or your organization. For all the owners in the room here or like myself that work for an owner company, we have to really focus on developing the craft workforce for the future. Whether that's us personally doing it or with our contract partners. But if we're not hiring contract partners that are not developing the workforce, we have to think twice about that. We have to ensure that they are in fact doing that. Now, our team, straight off the press here, our team will be doing a webinar in the fall to be determined what time and place we'll be doing that at. But it will be brought out to all of our distribution lists or anybody that's on the CI distribution list. So please pay attention to that and join us on the webinar in the fall. And last but not least, this is just the individuals that all contributed to this research that are maybe not on this stage, but we're really great professionals to work with, and I'm really proud to be a part of that team. So thank you very much, and have a good morning. Cheers. Let's go.
So I talk too much, like I said I wouldn't. And we have a minute left for questions, but if we don't get to questions, we will be out there.
Does anybody have a question? I can't see a thing.
This is perfect. We can't see any of you, so this is...
There's one in the app. I saw Deb asked one about Girl Scouts. So I have 3 daughters, 2 of whom are Girl Scouts. 10,000 girls, K through 12, are attending the National Girl Scout Convention later this week. and the exhibitor hall has no EPC or owner firms attending. Sounds like a rebuke to me from Deb. It costs $6 to $10K to have a booth. Who from your company should be there 3 years from now? So it doesn't sound like a question to me.
It's more of a challenge, which I appreciate.
More of a challenge. So I did not know this, but I'll make a note to have somebody from ExxonMobil there next time. Have you seen companies that are developing hard KPIs to track the value of their training programs? In my past selling training simulators, the issue always come to being able to quantify the value of something that did not happen.
I think it's one of the hardest things to qualify or quantify is you don't have any safety incidents. Was it because of training? Well, as a training manager, I always say yes. I'm always taking some responsibility for that. Because if it goes the other way, they're going to get on us, right? But we have seen time and time again with our virtual reality, with the people, the intake of people being able to repeat this and get what we like to say is proficiency, right? We can train someone in 2 weeks, but are they proficient? And we all can probably say no in most cases. Because the only opportunity we have is small facilities or limited time to get these folks in there. So they might only have 2-3 times to go through some of these options. What we've seen, we were in our last project for, I won't get into specifics, but we were 25 days late on our project. When we installed virtual reality in the last project, we were 3 days early. We've now instituted it again, we were 4 days early. So we've seen it from an ROI or from an investment point of view, we've seen it in spades come back to us. So for your KPI, there's your answer.
Yeah, I did some research. I came up through an electrical apprenticeship program, and I went back to the people who graduated the electrical program the year behind me and the year ahead of me, and there was about 100 of them. And I went and tracked down where they were all at. I wanted to find out how many of those went into a leadership or a management. 100% of them had. And so when you're investing in people, you're investing in your future for your companies. Those are going to be your managers and your leaders. So data is really hard on, ROI is really hard on training, but I don't think we can afford not to train.
100%.
So there's one more question. How can we accelerate adoption?
Okay. You could accelerate adoption, because we didn't precede this question, I promise that. You could accelerate adoption from taking it slow and taking it easy at first, right? I mentioned in my whole spiel with one of the themes that going from a program to something that's more systematic is the goal. That's where we see most of the success, because it's persistent, it stays, it grows, it's scalable. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't start small. So start with something like a recognition program, and then let it grow from there.
Yeah. Good answer.
All right, join me in giving them a round of applause.
Thank you.
Great job.